Hello, everyone. I'm Carrie Bachan, and I am from Avalon School, and our school is grades 6 through 12. We serve 275 students right now. Next year, we're going to be 300, and I'm with my colleague, Tim Qualey. And we consider ourselves student-powered, teacher-powered, and community-powered. So Tim and I are here together because we share leadership at Avalon, and we share it with our students, we share it with our community, and we share it with our families. The shared leadership model is really purposeful around creating student empowerment and student agency. And so it's with that I would like to share a little bit of our journey. So Avalon, I am one of the founding teachers of Avalon, but the truth is we had founding students, we had founding parents, and we had founding community members. And our founding students were only in 8th grade. And it's hard to even imagine it now. They were going to be coming to our school, but they sat on hiring committees, and they hosted open houses, and they talked about the future school that they were going to create. They also built community events, and they helped get our building ready. So those 14, 15, and 16-year-olds walked into our building with a lot of ownership. And if you know anything about that age, you also know that they're tremendously independent, but they haven't quite recognized that with leadership, with ownership, it takes compromise, it takes collaboration, and it takes a lot of responsibility. So we had to take all that energy. There was 100 9th and 10th graders, and only 8 staff. We knew we were outnumbered. We knew we had to figure this out. And so we did it in multiple ways. The first way is we did circles every single day in our advisory. And that way they got to know each other so well. They got to process their feelings. They got to learn about each other. But then we really actually formalized our governance structure with authentic student voice. So as a social studies teacher, as somebody who went to law school, I got to work with our students, 25 of them, 9th and 10th grade again, and we wrote the Avalon Constitution. They were the true authors. I just massaged it a little. They created the idea that the students were the legislative branch, the teachers were the executive branch. They could never override our veto, though. But then we also had a judicial branch. And that judicial branch morphed into a variety of things, but eventually became our restorative practices branch. So those students created the foundation of our community. And if you came now 24 years later to our school, you would see their legacy. It's quite lovely. You would see a kind, inclusive environment. You would see now a community that is over 50% of students with learning differences. You would see a community where kids who never thought they belonged anywhere found a home at Avalon. So when we empower these kids, and many of you who know about 9th and 10th grade and you don't want to empower them, you want to control them, we realize when you do that, they created an inclusive community, a kind community. They are the reason, now 24 years later, our student climate numbers are outrageous. So that's just one component of our school and how kids are empowered. And we thought we'd bring up the community aspect first because I think I was surprised by it. I was surprised that when you gave students that level of autonomy, that they would just do such positive good work. So Tim is here and he's going to share about how they control their learning in their learning environment.
When I think about those early days and even years and that energy that Carrie mentioned, I'm totally in awe of the commitment and the vision of that founding team as they brought to life a truly innovative, student-centered, teacher-powered model. And I think though we've changed and grown over the last 24 years, I think the Avalon of today would certainly feel very familiar to those first 100 students. When I applied to Avalon in 2008, I think the design of that vision was not totally obvious to me. I think what was obvious was that Avalon was a little weird, and also that I needed a job. So hired, hooray. As a licensed language arts teacher, I was tasked with leading an advisory of 9th through 12th graders as they designed and executed independent projects around their passions, their skills, their interests, and their needs, and trying to help them see how it all fit together, both for graduation and for life. So as a new teacher, I think two things really stood out to me. First, I had time intentionally built into my day to form relationships with my students and their families. And then second, I myself actually was empowered. I think these are both foundational, necessary elements for student empowerment. Because I had time to build meaningful, deep relationships with my students, sometimes over the course of 4 years, I could serve as a true partner, like a connection between the student, their family, and school. And I could also help my students take advantage of project-based learning in ways that were really deeply relevant to their lives. And because I had agency, in my work with students, in my curriculum, but also in matters of school policy, of school budget, our learning program, I actually could respond directly to student need. I could say yes, essentially. Yes, you could get these writing standards by drafting letters to your representative. Yes, you could teach a class on the history of comic books, if that's what you want to do. And yes, you could get credit for building and then sleeping in a shelter made of ice, even though it's 15 degrees below zero. The examples are honestly endless. So with support from licensed content teachers and even experts in our local community, students were studying chemistry through cooking, physics through race cars, and history through letters that their great-grandparents had written. And through it all, they shared their work, not just with me, but with the whole community, and together created a culture of learning and also a more inclusive and welcoming space as we learned about each other. And here too, in matters of school culture and climate, I think students are empowered and expected to lead. As Carrie mentioned, they still serve on hiring committees. They write and amend school rules, they mediate peer conflicts, and they provide real input on policy changes. This is genuine student agency, and it's been at our core for over 25 years. When I was preparing our entry for this award, I sent out a survey to all of our graduates asking for stories of student empowerment. Over 150 graduates, some in their 30s and even 40s at this point, responded with just beautiful stories of the Avalon's impact on their life. They shared stories of embracing responsibility, of discovering their passion, and experiencing the true joy of meaningful work. It's impossible to explain the impact of 25 years of student ownership and teacher agency, but a few outcomes do stand out that we want to share with you. So first, for our staff are generally happy. Next year, we will return all 44 licensed teachers and paraprofessionals. At a time of widespread teacher shortages, we're going to remain fully staffed. For our families, 99% of families surveyed this year said that Avalon is both a safe and positive learning environment. And most importantly, for our students, with a vast majority of our students responding, over 90% said, I like going to school, said, school is relevant to my life, and said, at Avalon, I feel like I belong. These are teenagers in 2025 talking about middle and high school. Truly remarkable. But as Carrie said, it is not an accident. It is a school designed from the beginning with students at the center, where teachers have genuine decision-making authority, and parents are seen as partners in the work. So, and this, I think, is how you build hope. You empower students not just to succeed at school, but to shape their futures and ours with them. So thank you so much for allowing us to share our story today. It's an honor to be alongside so many of you who are building hope every day. Thank you.